I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. How do you become a more loving person? How do you experience more love in your heart and your character? How do you change and grow into a person who's surrounded by loving people? Love is too general of a goal to approach directly. It really has to be broken down. And that's why Paul breaks down the components to building a loving character. Listen as I talk today about how to become a more loving person. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I want to say thanks for listening to the Rob Skinner Podcast. There are so many people that have been so encouraging over the years. I think this is my 5th year of doing the program. And I want to say thanks to special supporters like Melanie Yu. I recently got a gift from Tony Coughlin. I want to say thanks to Matt Flores, to Jeff Hernandez, who've given through Buy Me a Coffee, the app that's in my show notes. Patricia Keating, thank you so much. Shayla Joyner, JJ and Trinity Griffin gave a generous gift. I really appreciate it. Yatunde Iria, Neka Dela Cruz. And there's someone and someone else, anonymous givers. I want to say thank you, whoever you might be. Really, really appreciate it because your support enables me to keep multiplying disciples, leaders, and churches and inspire others to do the same through this podcast. So if you're listening today, you'd like to give, just simply go to the show notes. There's a link there. Really, really easy to give. Thank you so much. How to become a loving person. Pam and I just moved to Boston from Tucson, Arizona. We moved here last month. This is being recorded in August of 2025. And we lived in Tucson for 13 years. We planted the church there back in 2012 and created so many memories. The last month we were there, we were busy packing up and saying goodbye to people. It's really difficult to condense 13 years into a few goodbyes, as anyone who's traveled a lot knows. But you know what was most important to Pam and to me? Knowing that I really love the people there and that they love me. I mean, it's just kind of, how do you sum it all up? It's like, did I love people? Did people love me? When I heard people share how I'd help them and love them, it's really all that mattered. It's all I was really looking for. There were many things that people shared that I had long forgotten about. I didn't even remember it, even when they told me, like, okay, that happened. Awesome. And they were often small things, but they were really big to those people. Coming here to Boston, I had about 3 months there where I took a sabbatical or career break, and it was an awesome time of reflection. I hope to share about it soon. But I just came here with a simple focus. I want to love. I'm just here to love. I want to love as much as I can. I want to learn as much as I can. That's the goal. So what's your goal? Is it to make friends? Maybe you'd like to find a romantic relationship. Maybe you want to make a difference. I hope love is mixed up in that mix, because it's easy to remain unconnected with people, even though you're surrounded by them. I'm here in Boston, and it doesn't compare to living in downtown Tokyo, where we lived for 9 years, 10 years. But it's still, to make connections, you have to really go out of your way. So let's figure out how to grow in the quantity and depth of our love. Let's start by reading 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 3 through 6. And in that passage, Paul says to Timothy, I urged you as I went into Macedonia, stay there in Ephesus so that you may command certain people not to teach false doctrines any longer, or to devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies. Such things promote controversial speculations rather than advancing God's work, which is by faith. The goal of this command is love, which comes from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. Some have departed from these and have turned to meaningless talk. So Paul is advising Timothy how to lead the church in Ephesus, and he tells him to command people to stop wasting time with empty words, false doctrine, gossip, backbiting. He says the goal of this command is love. That's the whole point. Love provides the environment that advances God's work. If you've ever been in a dysfunctional family, a dysfunctional church, a dysfunctional work situation, you know how God's work and any kind of good work gets sidelined when love takes a back seat to controversy. And love, like I said at the beginning, love is too general of a goal to approach it directly. It really has to be broken down. So, how do you become a more loving person? How do you experience more love in your heart? How do you change and grow into a person who's surrounded by loving people? Paul explains that love is like a tree that grows when it's in the soil of a pure heart, a good conscience, and a sincere faith. So let's go ahead and just break that down today by taking a look at these three aspects of the kind of environment that produces a loving character. So the first thing here is love comes from a pure heart. Now, let's just take a look at a proverb that I think ties into this concept. In Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 through 27, the writer says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil." So the Bible says, guard your heart because everything you do flows from it. Everything's connected to it. When you allow poison into your heart, it kills the love that wants to grow there. Now, the first way to keep your heart pure is to watch what you say. And that's a little counterintuitive. You're like, how would what I say, how would that, create a pure heart? But he says, keep your words positive, faithful, upbuilding. Paul was pointing out the meaningless talk and empty words of the people that were troubling Timothy there in Ephesus. So you really need to ask yourself, how are you doing in what you say? Are you loving people with your words or are you tearing them down? One decision that Pam and I made before we left Tucson was that we are going to encourage every person in our church, specifically, who came to church. We spent several midweek services praising and thanking every single member and every person who was attending. Now, there were people in the audience that we'd had conflicts in the past, and I think any family situation you're in, you're going to have conflicts from time to time. I don't think that's abnormal. But there were a few people that we'd had funny feelings toward, and they felt the same toward us, maybe in the past. But we just made a conscious decision. We are only going to praise and encourage. We are just going to leave here appreciating every single person in this awesome church. And it was amazing because my feelings for those people really changed. And when they later had a farewell party for us, they were so loving and kind. It was just such a great farewell to the church there. And it was just really, really encouraging. So here's my challenge for you. If you're listening or watching this, take a minute to say something positive about the next person you run into. Let's say you're listening to this at the gym. On the way out of the gym, go out and say at the counter, "Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I know you're always here. Thanks for the smile." Whether you're at work, whether you're in the gym, in class, or at home, maybe you're listening to this in your car. Next person you meet, deliberately take a second to say something encouraging to and really build that person up. Now, it can be as simple as, "Hey, I like your shirt. I'm glad you're here." Or, "Hey, you really lift my spirits," or "I like your smile." But make a decision to use your words for good if you want to have a pure heart. The second way to develop a pure heart is let your eyes look straight ahead, fix your gaze directly before you. So the writer here, Solomon, is talking about, guarding your heart. From it everything flows. But he says, be careful what you're looking at because it's hard to be loving when you have no boundaries for what you allow your eyes to see. And I think that you got to go beyond just like physical seeing, but really what are the eyes of our heart locked into? And that could be something like shopping, money. Of course, sex is a big issue. The summer after I graduated from high school, I was dating a girl who had won a Miss Teenage America pageant, and needless to say, she was pretty. But I got distracted. Instead of focusing on her, I got focused on buying a 1965 Volkswagen. Now, this is like 1983. The car was almost 20 years old. I paid $1,100 for it. And then the same week I bought it, the engine blew. So I paid 1,100, it was all the money I had. And then I'm driving down the road, like a few days later, engine just blows, smoke coming out the back. It was nasty. And so I spent that summer working full time to buy and then rebuild that car. I was so obsessed with that car. I literally would work 24-hour shifts at the county fairgrounds, picking up trash just to earn money. Now, back in the day, this was the 80s, I think I was earning $4.50 an hour. I think that's what the pay was, minimum wage. So I would just sit there and I would just think, okay, if I work 24 hours times 425, that's almost $100. Okay. And I would do that. And I would just drive home. I was driving my parents' truck. I would just kind of be weaving on the road, getting home, just praying. I wasn't a Christian at the time. I was just praying, God, help me get home safely. But I was just trying to pick up the cash just to earn money to pay for this 20-year-old car. My eyes were on that car and definitely not on my girlfriend. I didn't take her out much. I didn't call her much. And guess what? Guess what happened? She dumped me at the end of that summer for someone who's willing to pay attention to her. So, not a big surprise. It doesn't, I'm sure you're listening and go, that doesn't shock you. But my focus was way off. What are you focused on? Where are your eyes looking? It's hard to love when your eyes are focused on the wrong thing. Okay, so let's go back to our key passage here from Timothy. He says, love comes from a good conscience, a pure heart, and a good conscience. So let's take a look at that second aspect. When you guard your heart and you start cultivating a pure heart, it leads to a good conscience. You start feeling peace of mind. It's hard to feel loving when you know that what you believe and the way you're living are in conflict. If you've ever been in sin and you knew it and you felt guilty, you know what it's like walking into a fellowship or a social situation. You don't feel strong. It's not like you're feeling like, oh, I just really feel like giving right now. You're hiding. You're covering up. There's something that you're ill at ease about because you're hiding something, and it keeps you from really having the freedom to love people like God intended. So having a bad conscience will keep you chained up. It'll keep you locked down, and it'll keep that love from really flourishing because you feel like a fraud and a faker. Maybe that's how you feel right now. You just go, man, I'd like to be more loving, but I just feel so bad. If you'd like to improve your peace of mind, take some time to talk to someone about what's going on in your life. There are always going to be gaps in our life and doctrine. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Mother Teresa or you're someone else. There's always going to be gaps. No one is perfectly like Jesus. But acknowledging those gaps goes a long way toward creating a good conscience and closing that gap. So my question is, when's the last time you talked to someone about what is bothering your conscience? You know what's the hardest call to make? The call to let someone know that you aren't perfect, that you blew it, and that you made a mistake. I've been reading on my sabbatical, I started reading Seneca, his letters, and I was reading this morning and he said, why does no one admit his failings? Because he's still deep in them. It's the person who's awakened who recounts his dream, and acknowledging one's failings is a sign of health. And so, what's he saying? He's saying, listen, it's the person who wakes up and sees they can remember the dream. But if you're still sleeping, if you're deep in it, you're not going to remember what the dream was. And it's just saying, hey, listen, if you're aware, if you're awake, you're going to see your sin. If you don't see it, it's a sign that you're still in it. I have a discipling relationship with someone that I talk to regularly, almost weekly, and I hate it. This is a person. I hate it when I've got a sin that I need to confess, and I know I'm probably going to talk to this person, whether it's lust, whether it's doing something stupid or saying something stupid. I frequently do that, or when I was sharp in my tone with my wife, Pam, or anything. It could just be any number of different things. I don't want to make that call. I just don't. I just think of things why, oh, I'm busy, I'm doing this or that. I don't want to talk to that person. Why? Because I'm hiding, because my conscience isn't good. But my conscience also bothers me at the same time. And because I don't have a good conscience, I go, there's something I feel uneasy. But what Seneca is saying here is really encouraging. The fact that my conscience does bother me shows that I'm spiritually alive and sensitive. So I'd be in real trouble if I didn't feel the need to deal with my sin. And Seneca goes on to say in that same chapter, with afflictions of the spirit, though, the opposite is the case. The worse a person is, the less he feels it. Have you ever heard a story about a person that just got involved in major sin, maybe a past spiritual hero, and you go, oh my gosh, how could he live with himself? Like how could she do that? Left the kids, left the family, got involved in a crazy relationship or something, just go, oh my gosh, how did that person keep that hidden for years on end? Well, guess what? They were doing terrible spiritually and they just didn't feel it. And they were able to keep that under wraps, and it did a lot of damage, but they were not doing well spiritually. So the fact that you feel uneasy is actually a good sign. If you feel like your conscience is sensitive and tender, you should just go, okay, thank you, God. That's a sign you're alive. If you don't feel bad when you sin, you need help, and you really need help. So hopefully you're not in that situation. Okay, let's go back to our passage. So Paul says love comes from a pure heart, a good conscience, and then he says from a sincere faith. That's a third component of developing a loving character. Paul's pointing out the difference between love and empty talk that masquerades as religion. God is looking for disciples who show and express their faith by practicing love, not empty talk. My life previous to Jesus was really empty words. I wasn't loving, and I didn't have a genuine and sincere faith. My friends would be surprised when I offered to help them or serve them. They were like, what's going on with him? He's got something up his sleeve. When you focus on planting the seeds of purity, good conscience, and sincere faith, love will follow. You'll start seeing a growth in the amount of your love. Now, Jesus is the ultimate example of this passage. His heart was pure, of course. His conscience was good as a result, and his faith was absolutely sincere. And it revealed itself through love and sacrifice. In a passage I love so much, Romans 5, 6 through 8, Paul says, you see, at just the right time when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we are still sinners, Christ died for us. Every week at church, if you're a churchgoer, we remember the one person who consistently hit the goal of loving. I mean, that's why we go, because there's this one guy named Jesus, and he's loving 24/7. And he showed it by giving his life for those people who aren't so loving. And that's why Jesus told us to take time every week to remember his life and his death. It reminds us of how much we're loved and inspires us to be a lot more loving. Again, look at what Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wrote. Now, this kind of blows my mind because Seneca was born, I think, right around the same time Jesus was born. I think he was born in 4 BC. Just so different place. I think he was born in Spain, different part of the Roman Empire, but same time. And look what he writes. It's really powerful. He says, happy the man who improves other people, not merely when he's in their presence, but even when he's in their thoughts. And happy too is the person who can so revere another as to adjust and shape his own personality in the light of recollections, even of that other. A person able to revere another will thus soon deserve to be revered himself. Choose someone whose way of life as well as words and whose very face, as mirroring the character that lies behind it, have won your approval. Be always pointing him out to yourself, either as your guardian or as your model. There's a need, in my view, for someone as a standard against which our characters can measure themselves. Without a ruler to do it against, you won't make the crooked straight. So what's he saying? He's saying, listen, you need a role model. so that you can see, okay, here, Jesus, he's the ruler. And here I am. I'm kind of, bent. I've got major problems, but without that ruler, the perfect love constantly, it's hard to make a change. It's hard to know, okay, in what areas do I need to grow in? Now, wouldn't it be awesome to be consistently loving as a person? How amazing it'd be to known as an extremely loving man or woman. Let me remind you of some steps to building a loving heart. First, watch your words. Just take time. Just decide this week, I'm going to be the most encouraging person to my wife or to my husband, to my kids. I'm going to point out the good. I'm going to really build people up. I'm going to take time to smile at people and give them positive affirmations. Secondly, watch your eyes. Be careful. What are you focused on? Whether it's something negative, with something you see, maybe it's shopping, money, whatever your heart's really locked into, be careful. Make sure it's something good. Next, be honest with your life. Be open. Don't try to hide things, because that's the road to danger. Get around people who are going in the right direction. Do you have spiritual friends around you? That's so important. And build a sincere faith and learn the truth. Thanks for listening. Here's how you can help support the program. First, let your friends know about the podcast. Secondly, read and review one of my books, How to Plant and Grow a Church, or Courage, How to Make This Life Count. And I'm also excited because I've got a book coming out, and I'm hoping to get it done by my next birthday, which is mid-September, called The 10X Christian. And I'm talking about how to be a multiplying disciple. I'm really excited about this book, and I've been talking about it a little bit, but I'm determined to get this out by mid-September. So you can find those books on Amazon.com. And finally, just support the program with a gift today. Many of you have done that. I really appreciate it. The link is in the show notes, because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day, and make this life count.